Hello, hello.
Happy Monday.
Yay. Monday after Easter. I love it because spring is in the air.
It's like fresh. I just feel
Yeah.
fresh today,
Yeah.
like fresh and renewed.
I feel like a flower. I'm like just starting to open. So, anyway,
Okay. All
so
right.
we had a heck of a week last week. Let's get into that.
Okay.
We want to share with you kind of what a week in real estate looks like, kind of peel back the curtain and show you what we do on a weekly basis. So you want to start with the first one? We had a huge win.
We did. So I don't know who's been following along, but we had a listing in Arvada, which was very unique. And I feel like it's been a topic of our conversation for quite a long time because it was an interesting multiple transactions, right? This house started with a very, very sweet couple that needed to move out of state to be with family. They had lived there forever, trusted us to sell it for them. And it was a tough sell. But we did find a buyer, and the buyer purchased the home back in October. Was hoping to do some things to it that his circumstances changed and he couldn't. So he had to sell right away. And that's difficult.
Especially in this market when it's not appreciating on a
Right,
monthly basis, right? So
right. So he bought it for 575 in October, and he needed to sell it in February. So 4 months is all that he owned it. And so we had a really honest conversation about, obviously you're probably going to lose some money. It's didn't appreciate it all, if any, and it may have actually gone down in value. So we had all these conversations, right? And so he was reluctantly open to our OfferX strategy. And we had, like we've said, we had 100 people through. We got him 9 offers. We did close on this last week. He had listed it at 525. Again, he was ready to take the loss. He just needed to move on from it. And we sold it for 614.
so
So
almost $100 over that 525 mark, and
almost
then about
100,000.
40,000 over what he bought it for. So even after commissions and selling costs, he still made a profit on it.
He did. And it's funny when we sat down with him and he came in and he was just so upset because he really had intended for this home to become his forever home. He had some great, great ideas and ambitions for the property. And so this was not easy for him. But I remember he was sitting with us and you said, well, what if we made you money? And he chuckled so hard. Like that was
And he
so
doesn't laugh.
outside of the realm of possibility for him. And so when we were able to close that, and he sat there at the closing table with me and a little teary-eyed, he couldn't believe it. Not because of the number, but the weight that he had from having to switch course and things not turning out, and wrapping his head around the fact that he was probably going to lose a significant amount of money. And he actually made money. He said was one of the greatest gifts he's gotten. And so that felt really, really good.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. Well, I'm glad we did a good job for him, and OfferX came through and did what it was supposed to do, which is maximize the sales price for every one of our sellers. And
I'm convinced we wouldn't have gotten that good of a result using any other strategy.
okay, so we had a total of 4 appointments last week and 2 closings.
Yes.
We met with one of our dear past clients, kind of to piggyback on the OfferX thing. They have unfortunately, they have a family member that passed away, and they are selling that property in Aurora, and they decided to move as well. So they're going to be putting their property on the market as well. But the OfferX strategy works so well for them on this other home in Aurora that they want to use it for their primary residence here in Thornton. So we're excited to bring that to the market.
Yeah, that was really cool because we were going through, the process that we usually go through. And they're like, wait a minute, can we actually do OfferX? And we were like, sure. because they were just so happy with the
Yeah.
results. So that's super exciting when you get people to really buy in and trust your strategy. Um, that's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an awesome compliment. So,
Yeah.
so that'll be coming to the market here soon. And then, our second appointment, that was, that was an interesting one. That was a referral from one of our other past clients, but
It was.
they didn't have the success that we're experiencing.
No, it's funny. They were listed with another agent since October of last year. So they've been on the market for 6 months. And just sitting down with them at their kitchen table, I felt so bad because they're so frustrated and so tired and exhausted with the process. I mean, showings for 2, 3 weeks is long enough, but 6 months is, I felt for them. So I felt really bad. And so I just sat down and, how can I help you? What do you need? Because they do need to sell their house and they do want to sell their house. And again, they did buy it not too long ago. So there are some challenges. And, I had really open conversations with them about the stigma that now exists when you've been on the market for a while, because that's something that you don't talk about either. Most people think, if you listed with an agent and it didn't sell, then you just go relist again, maybe lower the price. And it's not just about lowering the price. There are some things that you're going to have to overcome now, because like we've said in multiple lives, if you have long days on market, people automatically think there's something wrong. And so we have to compensate for that in some way. And it's not always just price. And if you make too big of a price reduction, then people are really going to think that there's something wrong. So it's an interesting strategy once you have a listing that hasn't sold and you choose to list it with another agent. There are some things that need to be addressed. And so I had that conversation with them. I suggested, yes, a price reduction probably does need to happen, because at their current price, they've already been at this current price for 30, 45 days and it still hasn't sold. So that says something. I suggested that they get an inspection on the property, because like I said, if it's been on the market for a while, most people are probably going to think that there's a problem, something's wrong with it. So if we can have that inspection report available to people to show, look, there's nothing wrong with it, it's in great condition, that helps. I suggested they offer a home warranty, which again just reiterates that confidence in the property that there's nothing wrong. And then I also had a conversation with them about OfferX because of the timing. They're just super frustrated. They don't want to sit for 2, 3 more months doing showings. And I told them the only way I can see that we don't have to do that is using the OfferX strategy, because we'll know in 14 days. And I told them I only need a 14-day listing agreement. I don't want to drag this out any longer than you do. And so that is something that they're discussing and talking back and forth. But, if you're at a place where you're just done, but you still need to sell, that's why I told them, I said, this is the only way that we're going to know in a short period of time if this is really the right move for you guys or not. And so that was an interesting conversation. And they were very surprised by my, what's the word?
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm, but bluntness.
Yeah.
Because it's like I told them, I'm like, I'm not here to list your home or market your home. You called me in here because it hasn't been able to sell and you need to get it sold. So I apologize for not having all the small talk and the usual pretty presentations and everything else that you might have, but you gave me a job and I'm telling you how I'm going to do it. So, but I think they appreciated that. And so it's a big decision for them, because that's a lot to take on. You went from this and now I'm telling you to do this, this, and this. But it was an interesting conversation, because not everything is selling quickly.
Well, and at the end of the day, they'll at least have figures to work with. They'll let them, the market will speak to them and tell them, all right, here are some offers, here are the numbers. You make the decision whether you want to, possibly keep the property if those numbers don't work. So, that's our job, is to give them options. And right now
Right.
they don't have any options because they don't have an offer. So they don't know, what numbers to work with because there are no numbers.
Right.
And
Well, and a lot of people think that there is only one option. And we talked about this at dinner with our very best friends over the weekend. We have learned and realized like the way of selling real estate is broken right now with all these technological advances and all these things, and real estate is just sitting over here like on this lone island, still being done the way it's been done forever. And it's broken. And so I feel like it's not my job to go into a listing agreement or a listing appointment and say, well, I'm going to take these photos and I'm going to make these beautiful brochures and I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to sit here and really listen to you, and we're going to find the best strategy, because it's not throw a sign in the yard and just get showings, and like that model it's just broken.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really has figured out outside of OfferX how to actually generate a situation where it gets multiple competitive offers for these sellers. So yeah, like you said, the traditional model of list and wait, it just doesn't work, because you can be waiting 6-9 months and you still not know the answers, and that's not fair. There's a better way to do it, and I think we've kind of cracked that code with OfferX.
Well, and it's
So
been a renewed excitement too on my appointments when I go out there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a different way. Like, it may not be for every single person, but at least I have another option. Like, I have another tool in my toolbox, and it excited me to be like, hey, okay, so we've done this, this, and this. It doesn't work. I have this too. Let's see if this works. So it's given me like a renewed energy and excitement around what I'm doing, because it's just like I said, real estate has just gotten it's stuck.
well, and it's difficult to be different. So to have this extra tool in your toolbox and it's totally different and it goes away from the traditional model, there's sort of a shock factor.
Yeah.
So it's really been interesting to see how this plays out. And we're having huge success. But I want to get to the other appointments too.
Yes.
This
Yes.
isn't the OfferX show.
No,
Uh,
it is not.
so let's talk about a couple sellers that we met with. Kind of have similar situations. One's moving into an assisted living reluctantly. She realizes she has to do that, and it's actually forcing her daughter, who's a past client of ours, to make this decision for her. And then we have the other one where another, I don't know if it's assisted living, but that's one of the options, or downsizing and getting into a low maintenance condo or 55 and over type of community. They haven't decided yet, but maybe we can start with the second one first.
Yeah, this sweet lady, she's been a part of our network for so long, and she's always been such a big supporter of ours. And she's always said, I'm never going to move, but anybody she ever comes across, she sends our way. And we're so thankful for her, because we've sold several properties because of her referrals, and she's just so awesome. And so it was weird to go in and be talking to her about her needs. And I know 100% this is not something she wants to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard for us. You want to figure out a way, if any way possible, to help them stay. But as we know, even in our personal lives with some of our parents, or just doing this with so many different families, it really, really is not the best option for a lot of people. And so, we try to be as big of a resource as we can for people. We have access and contacts to a lot of different independent and assisted living facilities, so we can offer, that kind of information for them and try to help with that. She's also considering maybe downsizing to a condo that's more, 55 and over kind of thing. But then you also have the piece of the cooking and the cleaning. And so it's a lot of things to consider and walk through. And these are the stories you always look at me, because I get super, super like these speak to my heart all the time, because I know how hard it is for our clients. And I know some of these people are original owners. Their whole lives have happened in these properties. And it is just heart-wrenching for me to think of how hard it is for them to be leaving these properties. And so, yeah, that makes me, those appointments make me a little sad, but they also make me extremely grateful that we have a ton of resources for them to help them make the right choice.
Yeah. Love it. And she had her family there. She had her daughter there and her good friend who's a financial advisor. So she has a whole team behind her to help make her this decision because it is an important one and a very difficult one. So,
And I find myself saying in all of these appointments that we go on when we have these situations, it's a hard conversation, but it's better to start sooner than later. Because then you have our other situation where, thank goodness, like our dear friend and client, past client, she steps in and she just handles stuff and she knows what to do. But at the same time, we run into so many conversations where the parent doesn't have really a say. It's more about a necessity, and they don't have the time to make the plan to make the transition. It's like, oh, something happened, somebody fell or somebody got sick, and now we got to do this quickly. And so it's always better to have those conversations earlier rather than later to ease the stress for the person who's having to make this huge change down the road.
yeah, it's always better, but those are all difficult situations. And sometimes they don't make decisions until they're forced to,
Right.
unfortunately. So, very tough situations, but
Yeah.
we'll walk them through it. We'll provide as many resources for them as we can and help them the best way possible. And then our last appointment was
Closing.
our,
Well, no, appointment. We have some very dear past clients who are looking to start their investment portfolio, which people look at us like we're weird. You're like, you have people who are actually looking for investment properties right now? We do. They are just, they sold a property, they own one, they bought a new primary with us, and now they're like, we want to keep expanding on our rental portfolio. And so we're working through that with them. A lot of moving pieces in that. But they want to do it. So we've come up with a great strategy for them. And so, yes, there are people in this market with bad interest rates and all the things who still see the value in owning real estate. And we have found a strategy that's going to work for them.
Yep. Yep. Good deal. And then our last closing, some dear friends, well, they've become dear friends, who bought their first home, which was cool. Bought new construction.
They did. And it's so funny when you work. So funny. We have 20-year-old kids, right? We have 20 kids in their 20s. And when we work with clients that are in their 20s, it's just so funny that like we can talk the language and stuff and they look at us like we're weird. I'm like, oh no, you guys are like our kids. Like we talk to people like this all the time. But yeah, we sat down at the closing table, and first of all, the excitement, like they were just like their energy, they were just so excited. And then they got their appraisal report, and their appraisal came in higher than what they're purchasing it for. And then they got their first payment letter, and their payment was lower than they were anticipating it to be. And they got to move in quicker than they thought. So all of these things, right? Like it's been a while since we've had clients that were that excited at closing. So that was really awesome. So they got a really great interest rate. They obviously already have some equity in the home, and they got a really great brand new house. So they are super excited, all at the age of 22.
Yeah, congratulations to them. The other thing I want to touch on is that, the importance of hiring an agent when you go to new construction, because it wasn't all smooth. And on our vacation in Florida, we had to get on the builder because they weren't delivering on what they told us was going to happen. So we had to step in there.
The builder felt like because we were out of town that they could just go talk directly to the client. And our buyers called us frantic one night, and there's nothing that makes me more upset than a builder trying to go around me to my client and having to do that on vacation. So those were like two things I was super upset about because what the builder knew they were in the wrong. And I think because our clients were first time home buyers, they thought maybe like it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. It was, and we made it right. But I agree. A lot of people think it doesn't matter. There's always things that come up, whether it's with figures at closing, whether it's with the actual property and the condition. all those things, you know, you need representation. You don't know what you don't know. And so, you know, it doesn't cost you anything when you're working with a builder to have a real estate agent. And so I would recommend that every single person does.
Well, awesome. Well, we'll close on that. You know, so there's our week, guys. Had a couple closings, including a home that sold for 89,000 over asking. Repeat client who came back because the results speak for themselves. A seller getting a second chance after the traditional way didn't work. Two families navigating one of the hardest decisions and transitions there is, and a buyer building wealth through real estate. So every single one of these people had a different situation, but the common thread is they needed a strategy, not just a listing. And that's what we do. We come up with the right strategy for you. And if we don't have the right strategy, we point you in the right direction of somebody that can help you. So sometimes we can't do everything, and but we have the resources to point you in the right direction. So so if you're thinking about selling or buying in this market, or just want some advice, comment below, and we'll help you out. Reach out to us. So anything else you want to say?
No, that's it. When you wrap it up like that, I'm glad that we did this. We never really go like behind the curtain and kind of let people know like what does the week look like. It's all over the place. We do a lot of different things in our weeks, and sometimes it's nice for me, selfishly, to sit down and recap and see like, wow, what a blessed week that was. So
Yeah. Well,
I'm
right around
grateful.
Easter too. So super
grateful.
blessed. God bless everybody, and have a good week, guys.
Bye.